Welcome back, people. It's no decorum. Let's talk about the conflict between Israel and Palestine.
Okay. We're talking about historically, the conflict.
Yeah, we'll give it a little bit of history lesson here.
Okay.
We're not a history professors or anything, but we're going to
play one on TV.
Yeah.
Or at least on YouTube.
A little bit of context there, and then we'll talk about what's going on today.
Okay. That's good. We should understand the context here. So,
yeah.
All right. So, where do we want to start? Ottoman Empire?
Yeah. So, the original conflict that started, it goes way back, actually.
Not thousands of years.
Not thousands of years. The religion has its problems. We don't agree with the religion or any of that, but we're not going to talk about, whose religion is correct and it is wrong. That's not what we're here for.
Sure.
What we're going to talk about is how it started. So before World War I, there was Ottoman Empire, and British and French were fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And after Ottoman Empire lost that war, British and French decided to divide the Arab world, basically. Yeah. And basically drew a line on the map. Say, okay, this side is your French and this side will be British.
Uh-huh.
And Palestine land basically fall into British side. So that's what the history is. That's how it started.
Yeah.
And, it was there were some Jewish people there originally, and there's some, obviously Arabs. They all are, not all Palestinian people are Arabs.
Sure.
But they are. Some of them are, not all of them are Muslim. Some are Jewish. So, and that's how it started. So,
that's a pretty brief,
yeah,
but detailed history of what's going on.
Yeah. So, and that takes us, to World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And after World War II, our German brothers in certain uniforms,
right,
the brown,
mm-hmm.
what is it called?
Huh?
The brown
shirts.
Brown shirts, yeah. Kill a lot of Jewish people.
Yes. So the Jews are trying to return, or what?
Yeah. So that's what they decided that they need a home for themselves.
Yeah.
And they decided to return to the Holy Land.
The Holy Land. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Where God, as a real estate agent, decided
it was theirs, right?
Yeah, it was theirs.
So when moving back, right, they had needed land.
Yeah.
Right. So many Palestinian farmers were kicked off their lands, and
they were kicked off. Most of the land was bought.
Okay.
It was paid 3-4 times what the land was actual worth was at that time.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, and as humans, most people, when they see somebody's willing to pay, they're not thinking in a long-term process. So Jews kept buying and Arabs kept selling, and eventually they were able to buy enough land to, declare Israel as independent country.
Weren't there also non-Arab landholders that they bought from as well?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, so they're starting their own country. Sure, the Palestinians approved. Wait, did they approve?
No, they were not.
Approve.
They were not included in that decision.
Right, and then you have multiple conflicts leading up to the current time. You have the 6 Days War. What, the Yom Kippur?
Most of the wars that were lost by Arabs.
Yeah, that's right.
Mainly because Israel was supported by U.S.
And why would we do that? Why would the U.S. support Israel over the Palestinians?
Um, there is a very strong Jewish lobby in the United States,
Interesting.
and you know they thought Jewish people were persecuted, and so they need a homeland, and this is how they were gonna compensate them.
Maybe it's like the Native Americans
Yeah.
where they compensated them with what were they like? Not plant. What are they called? Reservations, not
Yeah.
plantations. Yeah.
Yeah. You're thinking about the other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm just saying. So, okay. Well,
So that's the brief history, and that brings us to all the other conflicts that we have.
and the conflict happening today,
Yeah.
not a war. Conflict.
The conflict that's happening today actually happened back in the 90s also,
Yeah.
where Ariel Sharon was in power.
Right.
It was this same type of conflict. Started at Alexa Moss. People were praying. He sent his army
1,000
raid
people.
Yeah, raid the Alexa Moss, and when people came out, they saw this, and the conflict started, and which is the same way it started this time also.
History repeating itself, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I believe today's conflict happened because Netanyahu's keep losing his elections.
A distraction?
Yeah, so this was a wag the dog type of moment.
Like, here, I can defend you
Yeah.
against
So he needed something to generate support for himself.
interesting.
And this is a way to generate support. And I think he's getting, his numbers in polls are going up because of this.
Are you
So,
saying a conflict can be politically motivated?
I'm not accusing of that.
Okay.
I mean, because Benji is a very holy person.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean,
And his party is, very patriotic.
yeah, they are
Likud.
Likud party.
The warmongers.
The
The Republicans of Israel.
Yeah, the guy that steals from his own country.
Well,
Isn't he investigated for fraud also?
Yeah. His wife was too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty normal for a politician.
Corruption.
It's pretty normal behavior for any politician. But yeah, you're right.
That's my opinion, that this conflict has to do with his election more than anything else. But I could be wrong.
Could be right.
Yeah.
How are they doing it now? Are they sharing power? The two parties?
They're not. They're apparently it's supposed to be going through fifth election. So he's still the prime minister because there's nobody has won.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
They were gonna form a government without him.
Yeah.
And before that, he started this conflict.
conflict. Yeah.
Yeah.
Skirmish.
Yeah.
Disagreement. Yeah, that's actually a pretty smart approach.
Yeah.
It's cynical and it's evil, but it's politically pretty smart, pretty astute.
Yeah.
He's been in politics a long time. He knows how to get results in that sense.
And it's an easy way because it's an easier enemy.
Yeah, they already consider enemies.
Yeah, I mean, you have all the weapons. What do they have? Rocks,
I mean,
bottles.
AJ, they're ferocious fighters, though.
Yeah, they have ferocious missiles.
I mean, one Palestinian equals maybe one F-35. I don't know. So, yeah, and look, he's sure to get support, like you said. His numbers are up, so and the propaganda is good as well. Luckily there are some people in the mainstream media talking about the actual facts on the ground. I think
Ali Valchi, he had a
MSNBC.
pretty good segment on MSNBC, and I agreed 100% of it, actually.
Let's make one thing clear. Israel has a right to exist and to defend itself. That is an indisputable fact. But so do Palestinians, and that's a fact that's often ignored. Palestinians are, at best, third-class citizens in the nation of their birth. The idea that it's even remotely controversial to call what Israel has imposed on Palestinians a form of apartheid is laughable. One look at a current map of Israel, Gaza, and the occupied territories conjures up only one other example: apartheid-era South Africa. The Israeli government, on an ongoing basis, declares parcels of land on which Palestinians live to be either of military or archaeological importance, causing residents to be evicted. Sometimes there's a court case, and almost always the Palestinians lose. Yet months or weeks later, that same important land suddenly becomes home to a brand new Israeli settlement. As more and more Jewish settlers take over land on which Arabs live, the occupied West Bank becomes de facto more Israeli and, in the explicit hopes of the Israeli government, more Jewish. This is a long-standing attempt and a deliberate attempt to force Arabs who have lived in that land, sometimes for hundreds of years, out. It's an attempt to dilute their presence, because to have Arabs as full participants is, in the opinion of the Israeli government and their courts, diluting Israel. Just prior to the pandemic, I toured many of the contested areas and homes from which Arabs are being pushed out, both in Israel proper and in the occupied territories. Palestinians don't control the important parts of their lives. Palestinian families are refused permits to build or renovate their homes. When they connect their homes to the municipal water supply, Israeli soldiers sometimes cut the pipes. When they attempt to harness solar energy because their homes are not on the grid, Israeli soldiers literally come and remove solar panels from their homes. I spent an hour and a half traveling alongside an elderly Palestinian woman who was being transferred between 3 ambulances from Gaza to the no man's land in between and then into Israel to get cancer treatment. 3 ambulances over the course of 1 mile, more than an hour to cross the border. That's how Gazans live. Without medical treatment because Israel prevents it. Without electricity much of the time because Israel prevents it. Without the ability to fish in the Mediterranean Ocean because Israel prevents it. Without an airport or a seaport because Israel prevents it. Like Israelis, Palestinians also have a right to exist and to defend themselves. But there is no one willing to help them do that. Not the Israeli courts and not the U.S. government. What the U.S. also shares with Israel is the belief that Hamas, the political party that governs Gaza, is a terrorist organization that calls for the destruction of Israel. Hamas is supported by the majority of Palestinians in Gaza. Hamas may not be in the best long-term interests of the Gazans, but peace hasn't really worked out for them. Faced with an Israeli government which pens them into what has been called the world's largest open-air prison, they have chosen a government that most of us wouldn't prefer. One that is not given to negotiation and moderation and respect for its neighbor. Israel needs a new approach to the Palestinians, and America needs a new approach to Israel. After more than 7 decades of not just being deprived of land from which they were evicted, Palestinian frustration runs deep. It may be worth going deeper than what you may hear inside your bubble and understanding the depth to which the Palestinian people are subject to apartheid in their own land, deprived of basic necessities, and subject to relentless civil rights violations. This is not a secret. It's out there for you to see. You just have to look for it.
No disagreement at all.
No disagreement at all. The only thing
Suspicious.
that I was surprised at was he's still alive.
At the very least, still has a job.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sings very unpopular things. But the truth is, the sentiment in America is changing. It's not what it was, 20, 30 years ago.
No, it's not. I mean, it's been, this conflict has been going on for almost 50 plus years.
Yeah.
Well, the occupation of Palestinian land has been going on for almost 40, 50 years. And it's pretty brutal. I mean, vicious occupation.
Yeah, it has been.
Which our U.S. media fails to point out or show from the other side what's really going on over there.
It's unfortunate. But enough of it is coming through that the public support is waning. It's not, again, it's not what it used to be. So now you're having politicians openly criticizing Israel. Not many, but some.
Yeah.
And news organizations, sometimes like Ali Velshi will call it out. Not very much, but they're chipping away at the support. So.
Yeah, I mean, finally, people are beginning to see what it's like to be a Palestinian.
Yeah.
I mean, you're considered a third-class citizen in your own country.
Does that make any sense?
You have no electricity. You have no water. There is no medical care. If you need medical care, you have to go all the way to Israel, and there's no way for them to go to Israel because They have checkpoints and borders everywhere.
You're not. It's like you want open borders, AJ.
Yeah.
You're an advocate, huh?
I mean,
No, I know what you're saying.
the jigsaw puzzle of a country is
It's absurd.
it's just, there's a reason why you don't see a map of Jerusalem or map of Israel or Palestine the way they defined it in Oslo Accord, is because it's so weird.
It's almost embarrassing to look at.
Yeah.
Like, ugh. Yeah. Again, I like.
It sort of looked like a gerrymandering
It does.
of Republicans.
Whoa. I mean, AJ, we're not attacking our Republican friends here. Not today. Nah, why not? They're all in strong support of what's going on anyway.
Yep.
They always are. But yeah, so that's the problem. The bigger problem is that America supports Israel the way it does, and so the conflict never ends.
Yeah, it's the U.S. support. Nobody questions U.S. support because, Jewish lobby is pretty strong.
Yep.
And
There's also a religious component.
it's also justified because they say, well, Israel has a right to defend itself. But
Yes.
nobody says, why not Palestinian has a right to defend themselves? Why is that not a possibility?
Because we don't support Palestine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
All
how
right.
it works, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, they're terrorists. Hamas is a terrorist organization because they, whatever they do.
Well, it's declared by State Department, right?
Yeah, it's legitimate then.
Yeah.
But again, we've before we understand how this works. If you look at Osama bin Laden, when he was fighting the Russians, he was a freedom fighter.
Yeah.
When he was fighting us, he was terrorist. So it just how the winds of change blow this way and that. So
that can be said about any conflict.
and we're
US
called terrorists.
Yeah, it's when we do it, it's counterterrorism. When they do it, it's terrorism.
Yeah, that's right. Although other countries do call us terrorists. So.
Look at Southeast Asia in East Timor.
Ooh, AJ, that's.
We supported Indonesian
genocide.
what's his name? Genocide. Suharto.
Yeah, that was Carter.
Regime. It started even before that.
Yeah.
But, it lasted all the way up to Clinton administration.
We supported genocide.
Basically, yeah. They killed almost a third of the population.
I know.
But
that's okay. That's not,
even in 1965, when Suharto came into power, CIA at that time compared him to Hitler and Stalin and Mao.
Yeah.
At that time.
They knew.
But we kept on supporting him, providing them support, weapons, everything, because he was our ally.
Strange bedfellows, huh?
Yeah.
Just like the Contras, just like Saudi Arabia. Just take your pick. There's no principle here,
No.
except how can we benefit some way? Doesn't matter what you do, how you treat your people, whatever. Saddam Hussein. He was a.
Same thing. It's Kurdish and Turkish.
Yeah, that's right.
Tens of thousands of Kurdish were killed by Turkish forces back in 1997.
Yep.
I believe. It was so bad that they had committed all sorts of crimes against humanity. You can imagine. If you can imagine, they did it at that time. But Clinton administration supported him, supported Turkish forces doing that because they said they were fighting terrorists.
Yep.
At the same time, Clinton was providing, what was he providing?
Oh.
In Iraq.
In Iraq?
No-fly zone.
Oh, yeah, no-fly zone. That's right.
Over Kurdish people in Iraq.
To protect them. It's like a schizophrenic or something. It's weird.
Yeah. So he was supporting Turkey to kill Kurdish people, but protecting in Iraq from preventing Saddam Hussein to kill, from killing Kurdish people.
He only wants the Turks to kill Kurds. Nobody else, right? Our policy is all over the place. Clearly, it's not consistent, and we know why.
I mean, it just depends on who's the enemy.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So again, no principle there. It's not about human rights, right? Not really protecting human rights. You're protecting your ambitions, whatever they are. And but we're the good guys.
But yeah,
We're always
then
the good
again,
guys.
I mean, we were fighting terrorism. I mean,
Just like we fought the communists in Vietnam.
yeah, Vietnam.
defending.
I mean, that's another one. I mean, you just throw out a name and another conflict comes up, and like,
That'd be a fun game, wouldn't it?
yeah,
Go to a globe and just stop it and oh, yeah, here's this conflict. yeah, they were fighting
you
communism.
pick up Nicaragua.
Yeah.
They destroyed the country, totally destroyed it.
I know. Why?
Because they didn't follow our directions.
That's right.
Is that what it was?
You have to.
I mean,
Can't disobey. It's such a weird, it's always fighting communists, though. So it's one of those. That's the big excuse, right? Instead of actually fighting the Soviets, let's fight everybody else, right?
yeah. I mean,
We're not going to attack the Soviet Union, but we'll attack their allies instead. We'll attack Cuba, Vietnam, take your pick. I don't know. What are you going to do?
I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, how we have gone through history in the last 40, 50 years, ever since World War II, basically. And you pick up one conflict after another, and you find out that, U.S. is behind one bad regime after another.
That's right. Or, deposing, leaders, like elected leaders. Iran. I mean, take your pick.
Yeah. In
Central
Iran,
America.
they overthrew elected official because he wanted to share his resources with the people.
Can't do that.
No.
Sound like a socialist to me. And if he had been allowed to do that, we may not have the problem we have today
Yeah.
with Iran. Who knows?
Iran would be a prosperous country and be a member of the international community.
Yep. Instead of a pariah.
And we would not have to go in there and fight. We would not have to send our men and women.
And sanctions and making them suffer even more than people. So, yeah, a lot of bad decisions.
And then we wonder why these people hate us.
No, AJ, we don't wonder. It's our freedom. They hate our freedom.
Oh, they are very...
Isn't that the Republican talking point?
It's our ability to have Netflix on our
That's what
phone.
it is.
Is that what it is, huh?
They should hate Luxembourg, but they don't. They just hate him, Well, why don't they hate Norway? I don't know. Who knows? But,
It's our ability to drive fast cars. That's what it is.
And have private health insurance.
Yeah.
They hate that about us. Pay astronomical pharmaceutical company prices for medicine.
In 1958, they, during Eisenhower presidency, they went in different parts of the world with, North Africa, Middle East, all these places, and they went and talked to people. And they were trying to find out, why there was so much hatred was generating, towards the United States. And
as if they had to ask, right?
yeah, they wanted to know actually what the purpose is, because they were supporting the governments. They were there. And came to find out that people didn't trust the United States because the United States was hindering democracy.
But we're saying we export democracy.
No.
Oh, I see. That's a talking point.
Yeah, that was talking about that.
Okay.
We wanted our own leaders over there. We wanted our own puppets, basically, so they can, they can steal oil, basically.
This is in line with a poll that was taken several years ago. I think it was a Gallup poll.
Yeah.
And it asked, I don't know how many, 27 countries, like, what is the greatest threat to world peace? And they said the U.S., easily. And the reason was that the U.S. supports people that oppress them.
Yeah.
Like, they support the dictators that keep us down. And obviously we could have a lot more peace if they wouldn't do that. They create conflicts where there normally wouldn't be conflict.
I mean, look at Saudi Arabia, our support for Saudi Arabia. We don't like Iran. They say it's dictatorship because, you know, they don't let their people free. But Iran has more free elections than Saudi Arabia.
That's right. That's exactly right. But they're allies.
Yeah.
So it's different.
Yeah. They let ExxonMobil come over there and explore.
Exploit or
explore, sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. Exploit is a bad word.
Yeah, we'll say explore.
Yeah.
We're trying to minimize bias here, folks. Okay, say the neutral words. But yeah, that makes it okay. Even though they're very oppressive in their own way, and so I don't know. But it's hard to get people to understand that.
But really only if we apply, basic morality to some of these concepts, issues.
Yeah.
Just basic humanity is required solving these problems.
But it gets in the way of politics. You can't do that.
Can't do that.
It's always been the issue. So,
I mean, all we have to ask is, what is good for us should be good for the other person too. I mean, we wouldn't like if somebody comes over here and bombs New York, LA, or Chicago.
I mean,
if you're not going to tolerate that, then why are we okay with bombing other places?
Yeah, they bombed look at 9/11. What happened after that? We didn't tolerate that.
Yeah, we didn't tolerate it. We took out 2 countries.
Yeah, we did. And what, over 1 million people, or what the number was? It's a massive number.
Yeah.
But that's okay in the defense of freedom. Right?
I mean, conflict with Iraq. What is it? Almost 2 million people have died.
I don't.
That's the estimate.
Probably, I don't know the exact numbers. It's too.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody knows the exact numbers, but yeah, it's pretty high.
I mean, these are brown people. We don't want to keep.
They're pigmented people.
Yeah.
Not saying which way they're pigmented, but they're pigmented. Yeah, obviously it's the case. I mean, accurate counts aren't going to be, but yeah, it's high. It's high according to really anybody, any source you look at.
Yeah.
Johns Hopkins or take your pick. Very high. So, yeah, I think the problem is that when you see people the way you see yourself and you treat them that way, then you lose power in the world. You lose your influence, and you can't have that.
Well, and other side is if you see them as people, then you're not going to be able to bomb them.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and that's the reason Israel is able to do what they're doing, is because they don't see other people being as humans, and they have a right to live. They have a right to basics and necessities of life.
What do they
live
say?
in dignity.
They dilute. What do they say again? They dilute Israel or something. What is that line?
Yeah, they dilute the Jewish state by having other people.
They sound like Nazis.
Yeah.
What? Who else talks like that? Yikes. Well, Tucker Carlson does. I suppose he talks something like that about the Great Replacement, right?
Yeah.
They're going to replace us. And they're diluting the culture. And okay, well, we know what kind of people talk that way. But anyways, yeah, that's about.
That's
pretty accurate.
Yeah,
right?
I mean that's until our attitude changes, our United States attitude changes. Yeah. I mean, what did Biden do? Rashida Tlaib.
Yep.
Went up to him and talked to him, and what did he say? I'm praying for your grandmother.
Is that going to stop a missile? I don't know if that prayer stops missiles. Does that do it now? I don't know if that's.
I mean, he sounds like he's
just some bystander.
Yeah,
right?
just some city mayor or something.
Not the commander in chief of the most powerful military that ever existed, who could, with a phone call, stop this thing.
Yeah, I mean, he has a phone that has a direct link to Benji Netanyahu. Yeah.
All you have to say.
All he has to say, You need to stop this.
We're withdrawing all
Yeah.
payments and all support until this conflict is over.
Yep.
And that's it. It's over. It's over that day.
Yep.
But-
we're gonna stop all shipments of weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of that, he approved another $750.
$1 billion, right? Or
No, million.
$1 million
Yeah.
of arms.
These are supplies.
Yes, not arms. They're supplies. There's for the Jewish people.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So it shows you that his heart's just not quite in it, is it?
His heart is not in it. His brain is not into it.
Well, that's another issue altogether. We don't know where his brain is.
I mean, it's all over the place. So,
But
although, I mean, we recognize that this is a very complicated issue to solve.
mhm.
Even people like Jared Kushner couldn't solve it.
Right, the incredible Jared Kushner.
Yeah. The guy who was in charge of solving most of the problems.
He spread himself a little too thin, I think, AJ.
Yeah.
Besides being incompetent, but yeah, he couldn't solve it. It's very possible this podcast will solve it. I mean, once the word gets out of what we're talking about, there's a good chance that it's over by day's end.
I mean, there's another way to solve it. We could give Jewish people Montana.
We can give them Montana. That's right. There's plenty of space in Montana,
Yeah.
and they can displace the residents of Montana like they're doing in Palestine, and it's not a bad idea, honestly.
Do you think they will take it though?
I doubt it.
No.
I doubt it.
Because it's not decided by God himself.
All Father.
Yeah.
The eye in the sky. Yeah, that land's so precious, isn't it?
Yeah.
So precious.
I mean, even if you offer the pristine, not even Montana, let's say we give them, we'll say, well, you can have New York.
Wow. New York?
New
Even New York City?
New York City. I don't think they will take it.
Yeah, probably not. As much money is there, they're not going to.
And yeah, I mean, on the other side, if you say that to Palestinians, say, okay, Saudi Arabia can probably airlift all the Palestinians out of there,
They could.
and they have plenty of land.
Lots of
But
desert.
you think they will do that? Probably not.
Probably not. So I think what we should do is just irradiate the land so no one can live there, and everyone's got to go their separate ways.